Good day and welcome to the Vigilate Dialogues. I'm your host, Shaina Archer, inviting you to the National Boardroom. We do apologize for our late start. We had a few technical difficulties, but we think we have it all sorted out now. So I'd like to wish everyone, all of our audience, whether you're on CBN FM 90.9 or on your YouTube and Facebook channels, a happy New Year. All the best. And I pray you make it an epic one. If you're new to our program, Vigilate is the Virgin Islands national motto, and it means to be watchful. Our mission in this boardroom is to have dialogue or conversations about issues affecting our quality of life and how to solve them. The Vigilante Dialogues is broadcast live on Facebook and YouTube on the first and third Thursday. So this is our first show for the year, and it's at 7:30 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. And we played on CBN Radio FM 90.9 here in the Virgin Islands. With me tonight, I have a soldier. First, I'd like to give apologies. I had advertised that we were supposed to have three guests tonight. So Dr. Samuel and Mr. Stacy Mather are unable to make it. So we'll have them back at another time. But tonight, my friend Art and I are going to talk about nation building and the National Sustainable Development Plan, the draft that was released over the weekend, and go into some of the things in terms of why that's important to us as a people. So Art, I know we hadn't got a chance to go through the document in its entirety, but a couple things came to mind. I just want to share with the viewers kind of upfront, and then we start to unpack it. Within the document, one of the quotes I saw was where, I guess from one of the consultations, someone said, money is not the problem and money is not the solution. And I added on to it, no, people are. Because, in my years of working in the public service and now in the private sector, I always came across this adage that I find to be true, that if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Even if you're not the cause of the problem, it's we have a choice to make when we want to create a better situation or solve a problem, no matter how simple it might be. So it's important for us, when we're talking about doing planning and all of this other fun stuff we like to do, that we actually, stay focused in terms of the I guess the problem solving process. But I will pause there, let you greet our audience, and let's get into it.
Well, let me say good night to everyone listening. It's a pleasure to be here and glad to be a part of the discussion. Well, I too perused the document, just that first scan and analysis, and I had some very interesting takeaways, and I hope that we can get into those tonight. It is interesting though that you mentioned the identity, and as you know, that's the beginning and end all of our problems and challenges. So once we get the right frame, the right mind frame, I think we're in a position to solve any challenge that is before us. Of course, national development plan, and in this case, obviously, we're talking about the sustainable development. To me, it's nothing new, and we've been talking these things for a while. And I think the issue is when the road in terms of actually being able to do and to move that ball far to actually achieve some of those goals. And I that we be able to discuss tonight and get into some of those areas.
So in terms of the overall plan, what I'll do is I'll pull it up real quick. So persons, again, if you haven't seen it, you can actually locate it on the BVI Chamber of Commerce's website. That's the quickest way, because otherwise for that person would have to go and search for it through the press release on the government's website. I think they're gonna look at making sure that they locate it someplace a lot simpler. So this is the front page of the cover page rather of the document, Vision 2036, building a sustainable Virgin Islands. This process has probably been ongoing since the previous administration, actually, it was started. And it's a project that's being funded and supported by United Nations ECLAC, which is one of their agencies that help to bring technical support to projects like these. So it's quite substantial, more than everybody from know, in terms of the length of it, the length and breadth of it. But it has a lot of good information in terms of they talk about the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, threats for the country, a lot of financial data, um, the social standing. So we saw things in there like the unemployment rate, mention of the poverty line, and the percentage of the population that's believed to be considered poor, which I think is also very important because again we're talking about people. And even though we might feel we don't have natural resources, which I beg to disagree, because between the land, the marine, and the people, I think that those are natural resources we have to make sure that we are developing and investing in any plan. So those things are key. So what I'll do is I'll flip real quick to the page that actually talks about the national goals. So four national goals were identified, and that's on page 90. Of course, since I'll be able to view it really close up, but I'll read it out from my other screen. So the first goal is islanders are empowered for a sustainable future in an inclusive, vibrant society, living fulfilling lives. A mouthful. And then there are five outcomes underneath that: a healthy population with happy families, educated and highly skilled population, creating a dynamic 24th century labor market. Outcome three, adaptive and shock responsive social protection systems, leaving no one behind. Equality of opportunities and gender equality, and uniquely us, our culture, our identity, and our heritage. So, Art, I don't know if you want to take it one by one or if you kind of want to flow based on your takeaways. How you want to do this?
We could take it one by one. I had a few takeaways, particularly from. Well, first of all, let me say this. I think that um, when we produce a document like this, the first thing we have to minds is who is it for? Meaning, who is reading this document? And secondly, in terms of getting the public buy-in, getting the public involved, getting a general population to be on board with this sustainable development plan. And so I think that it's important that we're able to communicate in a language that they can truly uh, appreciate and buy in. And I think that oftentimes we're kind of talking to each other, and there is no in among the persons that really matter. That's one. And from the different goals that have been established, I think that there needs to be concrete ways in which we can really measure and track the accomplishment of those goals. And I'm just saying, for instance, if you look at, we talk about goal number 2, where it says the Virgin Islands will have a prosperous, vibrant, thriving international competitive economy. And you're talking about the improvement of the economic well-being and quality of life for Virgin Islanders. And I don't know if you've heard about the quality of life index, but to me, we have to bring on board some of these tools so that we can actually track the development of people's lives, not just from a perspective of increased GDP,
Mm-hmm.
where once the GDP increases, we assume that person's life and quality of life is also increasing, which is
Yeah.
not necessarily the truth. So we have to bring on board some progressive in terms of uh, really introduce quality of life index so that we can track,
Mm-hmm.
some of the very developed, because these are very lofty goals.
Yeah.
And the issue is, one, how do we achieve them, and how do we know that the things that we're doing are improving the lives of people?
Well, I know in that third column, it shows the alignment with what's been referred to as the Sustainable Development Goals, which is like the 2030 Development Agenda globally that the United Nations introduced, I think about 20 years ago. And there's supposed to be a measuring stick or a framework for us to develop the measuring stick that you're
Hmm.
referring.
Hmm.
And I think what I read in the beginning part of the document was that the monitoring framework. So there's supposed to be one an implementation framework after we have the plan, because you're correct. We could have the plan, but then if it's not implemented correctly or properly, then we don't get the results that we're expecting. And then we do need to manage, I mean, not manage it, monitor in terms of measuring whether or not life is improved. We do have a prosperous and vibrant and thriving, internationally competitive economy. It's like, what does that mean on the ground, so to speak? And I think that's one of the key things for me. I agree with you in terms of the language. It definitely needs to be something that, even a grade 5 student, because this is their future that we're planning, they should be able to pick this up and say, yes, this is the national vision for the country, and be tracking along with the adults as it relates to the progress of it. So, I agree I agree with, in terms of what it is we want to achieve. Definitely want to have, a healthier population. We know we have so much non-communicable chronic disease, and these are things that have plagued us for years now, I would say. But we haven't effectively tackled the problem as it were, to make sure that these things are taken care of. So, in your mind, what do you envision? This is saying that, by 2036, this is what the outcome should be. In your mind, what do you see how do you see, or where do you see the Virgin Islands in 2040?
So there's a list of things that, in terms of my vision for, or me envisioning where the Virgin Islands would be in
Mm-hmm.
2030. Is it 2030, 2040,
2040.
2039,
Yeah, they have
2040?
2026, but by the time we get this cranked up, trust me, 15 years will be from 2025, and start measuring from there, because there's something for me that is very key, and I guess it's incorporated in the plan, but I think there needs to be some preliminary things that need to happen for us to be able to effectively accomplish this. But
Yeah.
share with me your vision. Tell me where you see 2040.
Well, first of all, if we want to speak loftily, so in my mind, I envision a confident, secure, that are able to meet any challenge that is put before them.
Mm-hmm.
They have the intelligence, they have the fortitude to assess their environment and to make that is in the best interest for themselves and the people that live in the Virgin Islands and that call themselves Virgin Islanders. Um, I also envision a people that is secure in their identity in terms of what is it that is a Virgin Islander.
Mm-hmm.
And, and essentially, when you put these things together, see a people that is independent. When I say independent, meaning that the decisions that they make are not censured and not in oversight. by any other entity. So, so to get to that place, so in a lot of the things that we see in this document, obviously I agree with wholeheartedly. The issue is tools that we need to get to that place,
Mm-hmm.
and what are the things that need to be put in play to reach to that destination. So that's where I envision the Virgin Islands in 2040, an
Mm-hmm.
independent Virgin Islands. Now people are gonna have all kind of different associations of what they mean when we say independent or independence.
Yeah.
And but essentially are people that know themselves, know who they are, know the space that they're in, and how to in that space. That's that's my
In a
vision.
nutshell, that's when you want to be able to look out from your rocking chair.
Yeah.
In 15 years and say, hey, as in, I was, I joked about it on a post I did on Facebook the other day, but it's the truth. It's like in 15 years, I will be in my 60s. So, yeah, this really is about the children and the grandchildren, and what it is we're building. And I guess that's probably one of the key things to even pause here, because I've always heard in the past the question posed, who are we building the country for? I don't know if you have the answer for me, because we operate sometimes as if we don't know that it is their inheritance that we are stored in stewardship of right now. So it should be that we are working for their interest as well as our own, and not take that for granted, as far as it relates to the decisions being made. So a plan like this locking you in, not to say that the plan may not change over the years, because nobody knows what will happen even tomorrow. So we would expect, as part of the implementation, every 5 years, it's a kind of a gateway check to see whether we're moving in the direction we want to move in, or we need to take pause and adapt some things or modify something. So that's really key. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think all the principles that have been identified is really important, and moving it forward. So in terms of the top three development priorities, what do you see that they are or need to be? Because it's a total of 12, 5. That's, I think it's close to 20 overall. Yeah, 21 national outcomes overall. But there has to be
Yeah.
priorities. Everything can't be, important. Everything can't be at the same priority. Everything can be high
They
priority.
have to be, they have to be prioritized.
Yeah.
But there are some areas that I think that is critically important that is not explicitly prioritized in our outcomes here. Let me put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so even if we talk about a healthy population with happy families,
Mm-hmm.
and to me that there really has to be something that really concretize what we mean when we say that. What are concrete goals and measures that we can look to say that we have a healthy population?
Mm-hmm.
You know? Equality of opportunity, gender rights. I think this is something critical um, a part of that story.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, there's an issue in terms of identity that is critical. I mean, we talk about it in terms of cultural identity, Virgin Islands identity, but to me, that is a very, very important aspect to the development, because it goes back to when we say, who are we developing the Virgin Islands for?
Mm-hmm.
And if we say that we are developing the Virgin Islands for Virgin Islanders, there has to be some measure of saying, okay, who is a Virgin Islander? And
Okay.
if an individual feel themselves not to be an islander, then where do they fit in this story? There has to be some sense of who is a Virgin Islander, what it means to be a Virgin Islander. And
I feel as if you're
those are,
hinting at something. You gotta tell me what you're hinting at.
no, I'm saying that those are very difficult issues, but to me, there is no getting around them.
Mm-hmm. But because well, you pin that thought though, right? I'm glad it came up in a way because it wasn't part of what the direction I was going to think I'm going tonight. But I had this conversation today, right, with some colleagues, and I said to them, I said, we have a very diverse community now. There was once upon a time when it was basically primarily or dominantly black, and now you have a white Virgin Islander community. You have binationals, as a matter of fact. Whether it's from the Eastern Caribbean and here, because now you have children, a generation that is now
Mm,
here that has two nationalities, Virgin Islander as well as another country. Some might even have more because
mm,
their parents have different nationalities, and that's just a nationality conversation. Then you have ethnicity that enters into the
mm.
fray, and how that affects basically what we refer to as the cohesion in the society.
Yes.
Because they were saying to me, what how do you, if having the conversation will trigger the whole conversation around racism, I say, well, we can't behave as this doesn't exist, because it does. And it is going to come up again. I think the last time this really got pressed was with the constitutional review back in '06, then that time frame, in terms of when the constitution was defining who is a Virgin Islander. Okay,
Mm,
because when it's all said and done, you have definitions from those that are born and descended from Virgin Islander parents, to those of us born abroad but descendants of Virgin Islander parents, to those who marry and after 5 years they have the same rights as somebody who is born here to Virgin Islander parents.
yeah.
You know, so, and we know how the conversations go sometimes, where we feel that certain people shouldn't have anything to say about the development of the country because they're not from here. That's what we will say to them. Because on the surface, that's how it might look and appear. But the
Yes.
systems now that are in place, define them as something different. And it's to me, there's this undercurrent, which I think that's what you're referring to, in terms of social tensions that have to be addressed, and saying to us, if we are a Virgin Islander, what is, in terms of Virgin Islander identity, what does that look like? How does that look? How does that sound? How does that feel? And all of those types of things. So how we go about having those conversations is going to be very important in realizing that, I think that's national outcome number 5. In terms of uniquely us, our culture, our identity, and our heritage. So
Yes.
yeah, that definitely is a priority to a properly functioning society, and getting those things out the way, so to speak.
I mean, if earlier we talk about getting buy-in from the public,
Hmm.
and the question is, when you're trying to have to have a critical of people that are fully invested, um, those persons have to be invested,
Hmm.
and they have to be invested from the perspective that themselves as a part of this space.
Yeah.
And it becomes very, very difficult for you to develop society and the persons that living in this space don't vested in it.
Or feel
And
a part.
so
Okay.
yeah, for social cohesion, for all types of developmental stages and issues, it is in our best interest, it is in whomever's best interest to make sure that we maintain that type of cohesion.
Mm-hmm.
Because without it, it limits what we're able to accomplish and what we're able to achieve.
Yeah.
So I that is one of the issues that I have been speaking about whenever I get the opportunity to. And I think that is something is vitally important for
Mhm.
us going forward.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So that was, I think that was three. No, that was two priorities he gave me. I think the one was the health, the one was identity. What would be a third
I
one?
gave you.
Give me three.
So okay, so let me just make sure that so we have okay, so I'm trying to align my thoughts and ideas with the national outcomes.
But you will read out what you have, I'll find it on the plan and make reference to it.
So well, okay, I spoke about the quality index that's important.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a little bit about national identity, and if we're talking about development and physical strength and economic opportunities, I think that we have to talk about uh, a national bank, which should call part of any thoughts that we have in terms of national development.
Mm-hmm.
National bank should be the primary financial institution that we have for development in the Virgin Islands. I mean, I think it goes without saying that in terms of a tool to help us to bring about the lofty goals that we have before us,
Mm-hmm.
we need the financial mechanism to facilitate that happening. And in my mind, the National Bank is the primary opportunity to bring those things to fruition. Now I'm trying to fit it into
So that would
our
be
national.
actually outcome six and seven, I think, in terms of fiscal strength and sustainability, and
Yes.
um, strong, resilient economic infrastructure. Because you're so correct. The banking system in any country is basically what moves the money around. So the access to financial resources, whether as an individual or as a business, is going to be key to the economic development, your social economic development, because this is how people are going to be able to improve their situation from a wealth standpoint, and not have that struggle. Today, so, I had all these conversations before the show today too, because the conversation was around the ability to do electronic payment. And this is one of the key things, because again, we're in the 2022 now, and we still can't go online and pay for basic government services. Something that's kind of like routine anywhere else in the world, as far as when you consider yourself to be to a certain fiscal standing. And they were saying to me, so I said to them, I said, well, didn't we pass the e-commerce legislation the other day? And they said, yes, but that doesn't resolve the issue now with the infrastructure. So the person was explaining to me that it's necessary to have basically sort of like a central bank platform. So,
Mhm.
in the Eastern Caribbean, let's say for example, spending the currency, they have the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. So, that facilitates transactions across the countries through different banks because there's one, I guess, like a clearinghouse is what they refer to it as. I don't quote me
Mm-hmm.
on like I am a banker. But I was like, okay, so does it have to be that we can't designate one of the banks? Because obviously National Bank came to mind right away to say
Yeah.
this is an opportunity for us to really, again, put this bank at the forefront and to start to develop and push it because it's like you're saying that's the bank that's basically has the name of the country on it that should be put in a position to enable the people basically to move their lives forward,
Yeah. Yeah.
and doing that. So yeah, there's a lot of work to happen there, but you definitely I definitely support that in terms of what you're saying as a priority because again we could have a lot of perceived wealth. But if, as part of the report, the estimate is that I think it's about a quarter. When the last poverty assessment was done, a quarter of the population is below the poverty line. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and that is something again, one of those elephants. I mean, we have a whole zoo. So let's say this is a zebra in the room that people are in denial about. I think still
And
because
what was that census done before Armor?
so no, this is actually very old. I remember reading this document back in 2011. So I think it was before then. I think one was supposed to be done around the time of Oma. So it might have
Yeah.
been estimates were done, but it should have been updated because you're supposed to do poverty assessment, I think, every 5 or 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to the national census. So the national census is separate from this. This is something else. This is where they really go out and um do the economic assessments as it were to figure out what levels of income people actually are earning and the cost of living and how are they able to basically survive you know and a lot of our children as well are a part of that because this is families. So if the parents are below poverty line, it means that that family is below the poverty line, and it's important that we have the
Mm-hmm.
necessary social safety nets. I think was one of the outcomes where we were talking about no one is left behind. But we have to admit we have poverty because we can't address poverty if we keep saying that we're saying we don't have poor people. As if it's something that takes away from us as a society. I think Archie frozen. Are you still there? Okay, while I'm waiting for him to reboot. Again, let me go and I'm gonna just display this again. So here, as one of the United Nations Sustainable Development goal number one is actually speaking to no poverty. So that is something that is an international goal that trickles down to national levels, where again, every country needs to do the poverty assessments to be able to inform any planning that they do and address to be able to address the issue and solve it. So, we know about the minimum wage, but it's more than that. It's not just about saying you're able to earn a certain level of income. But aren't you back? Aren't you back?
Yeah, menu.
Okay, good. You froze on me there a second.
Right.
Yeah, so I just elaborate a little bit more in terms of where the matter of poverty fell in under goal number one, and saying that um, outcome three, adaptive and shock responsive social protection systems, leaving no one behind. And when we talk about healthy and happy families, all of that is part of it. Our families able to afford the education that their children need, and just to send them off to school and being able to support them in a meaningful way. So that's a key thing for me, that we don't just stay above a certain place in our economy as it were, and take care of everybody above there and forget about those that need assistance in a different manner and are able
Mhm.
to live a thriving life already as well.
Most definitely.
Okay. So we touched on those. So I think we're safely saying anything around socioeconomic. So the social aspects that includes health and education. In my mind, those are key building blocks to any nation. So if your education system and we want to think healthcare doesn't isn't what we think it is. Hospital is dealing with reactive approach. We want to be more proactive and speak to health and wellness and persons
Well,
being sick.
I I'm really glad that you raised that area because it's something that I have thinking about, and actually I had in mind Dr. Samuel when she was on the program tonight.
Uh-huh.
Well, in terms of our system, we seem to be following a lot of American healthcare care,
Hmm.
and and it is known American healthcare system the most expensive. It produces the worst or not as good of outcomes as many other comparable countries. And the question is, as a society, as a community, are we interested? Are we happy to along a line where health is in this model that has before us?
Hmm.
Are we good at that? Are we that? Even if Asian countries or European countries that have more of a integrative health system is model that we are interested to follow.
Hmm.
So I think that these are some of the issues come out of this document in terms of really getting to our 2020 goals, 2040 goals.
Hmm. Yeah,
I don't know if you
that's
have
good
any
for me.
thoughts on that.
Because again, if people are your national assets, you want to make sure if nothing else happens that they're well educated and that they are healthy and well. Because the economic aspect of it will come because now you know they put those skills to use and being in basically sound body and sound mind, they're able to execute the rest. So what else you have on your list as far as
Yeah, most definitely.
how we build a nation?
Okay, so environment.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about having a clean and stable environment, a sustainable environment. So you have environmental sustainability and a sustainable management of, I think this is national outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, and I'm just trying to put some additional information, put some additional into what each of these outcomes would mean. So in my mind, I think that we need to have a national recycling station that can that encourage and foster recycling, that can encourage there of goods. Sometimes product and something defective with it, it can be repaired, but it's cheaper to buy a new one than to repair it.
Mm-hmm.
So you simply throw it out and purchase a new one. But the solid weight it produces to dispose of it, it costs you more, obviously, from a good perspective to this of it.
Yeah.
So the cost of repair product is not being. So there should be a mechanism that we can come up that we can bring up where we encourage people to repair they have for reuse rather than just simply disposing of them and
Mm-hmm.
adding to a bigger problem of disposing of that waste.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I think we gonna have to begin to tackle to into a mechanism, whether it's a renaming of this department, or branding of it, or or, or new entity of a recycling corporate, whatever the price is,
Mm-hmm.
we should be thinking on that. Let's see, how can we remake a lot of the current
Okay, we seem to have lost Art there for a second. You're back?
still there?
Yeah, you were frozen there for a few. Go ahead. Okay, you're frozen again. So while he refreshes, I'm looking at this slide that's up. Okay, he's back.
Yeah. The last thing I was saying is that being on a small island, the the accumulation of waste is a lot much
Hmm.
more of a bigger for us than it might be other areas. So we have to find ways to make solve that challenge in terms of management.
Yeah.
And I think encouraging people, we can have a I hate scheme, but we need to have have a national uh, program or where we can encourage people to repair different products that they have rather than just disposing of them.
Hmm.
It can be simply repaired, and we could also provide for people
Reuse. Yeah.
or entrepreneurial opportunity that those routes also.
Yeah. I think and not just solid waste, but also sewage is a big, I think, for us. We've been struggling with this for far too long. And up to probably Tuesday. Again, Art, I was having a conversation. And the person was complaining about the smell of sewage around the village area. I mean, again, we're in 2022 and we're still struggling with these basic things in terms of disposal of, of basically human waste. And we're dumping it untreated into our marine environment.
Yeah.
And until I think this one especially is a concern for me because if government does it, then what do you leave for the population to do? It's one of those key things where we have to lead by example, and whatever it is that has this unresolved, my understanding is that the treatment plant out at Board Point is still not working. We saw works happening over the last year or two as far as the Eastern system that was supposed to go in. But again, we built a system that's still not working. So I don't know if these are things that are in this plan, but we definitely need to make sure that those are in the immediate priorities that need to happen. Because again, I can't see us be thriving and vibrant if those basic infrastructure aren't in place. And like you're
Mm.
saying, the solid waste management is out of control. You know, the landfill on the hill is not going to work for much longer. That is definitely not a sustainable situation. And I don't know if you saw the dumpsters after Christmas morning, but they were running over.
That's traditional scene,
Hmm.
and to me, we're talking obviously about solving the problem. We're talking about the infrastructure that we have.
Hmm.
There also be a shift in the way we think about even sewage, even if there's solid waste. When we talk about recycling, about being able to separate paper, plastic, and glass, and all the rest of it, and actually being able to reuse
Hmm.
those items. I've seen, and it's a relatively easy to do, where you can uh, reuse plastics for building materials,
Hmm.
and so almost as though a lot of these things are natural resource. I shouldn't say natural resources, but they are resources that can be used. And if you use them in the correct way, could be um, uh, a boost to your economic activity, rather than just taking it and can it to location and burning it.
Hmm.
You can really put it to use. Um, Page is one of those areas that can be used. Might be more because of some of the chemical that we end up in our sewage systems. We have to begin to think in that way, in terms of these challenges, rather than just thinking about um, just building a big infrastructural capacity to dispose, continue with the same paradigm, because that paradigm can't sustain itself. And I think
Okay.
that's the thing that needs to be reinforced when they use these the development um, plans and ideas.
Yeah.
This recognizing that the current way in which we do and operate are sustainable. It
Hmm.
it does too much um, investment and infrastructure. More that you grow the population, you're more to try to grow the population of the Virgin Islands. Challenges are just gonna exponentially
Get
get
more. Hmm.
bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah. So one of our viewers is saying there's an echo coming from you. All right. I don't know if it's from the headset or what the case
People
is.
coming from my thing.
Yeah.
It could be
It's
this
like
too.
it's in and out, but it's not there all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. So it might be how the cord is. Okay, that sounds a little better. So we're coming up on our hour, and there was one thing in the list that I wanted to touch on to get your thoughts on. And I think it is in, let's see, let me pull it back up. Outcome 15, talking about constitutional advancements. I guess all of this for me is a public service in terms of process improvement, or what we have been calling for years public service reform. So, peace, justice for all, safety and security, efficiency and effectiveness of government, that's public service, constitutional advancement. That's where I wanted to get to. But they just to bring in again in terms of priorities because the document is interesting. I don't want to go through the whole thing in its entirety because I want to encourage people to go and read it for themselves. Eh? So under each goal, they kind of walk through, what was gathered from the consultation. The the bulk of it that I saw, some of the consultations were done with the government ministries and departments. So they're giving their perspective in terms of what the development of the country should look like, and they have to weigh. And what I want though is that the public know, if they didn't speak to these things before, that they also know, take all this information and take into consideration, what it is that we're looking for. So there's actually some pages in the document that breaks it down into short-term immediate goals, um, the medium term, as well as the longer term. And I think constitutional advancement may be one
Yeah.
of those longer term things. Now, for me, I am like, we need to basically set the house in order before we decide or can have a conversation, a meaningful conversation about what is our next step in self governance, and what does that mean for us. Um, and someone was saying that some of these are more than public service and should become national priorities. Yep, I totally agree, Abdul. So, what are your thoughts in terms of at the end of this plan, in 15 years, we accomplish all of this? Is constitutional advancement, or this will be one of the questions I put to you. So, you're going to tell me what's your thoughts on constitutional advancement, or what I refer to as, self governance? What's the next step in that? And at the end of the 15 years, what would be the next move, so to speak, when it comes to our self governance?
So I would like to hear your thoughts on it also, but we have to ask ourselves the fundamental question as to, can we realistically achieve all the things set forth in this plan under this current constitutional arrangement?
Mm-hmm.
And if we can identify areas that hindrance roadblocks under the current constitutional arrangement, then we should look to make changes. If someone, hey, we can accomplish all of the things that we need because a willing partner, uh, a able partner to help us to get to where we want to get to, then it means let's keep things as they are. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that the record will show that the partner that we have engaged may not be, and I'm trying to put this in the best words that I can,
Keep it real, Art. Keep it real.
may not be page as us.
Mm-hmm.
If we say that it is all for economic empowerment in the Virgin Islands, it is our goal to have each Virgin Islander be independent and prosperous. Is all is are those goals in line with our partners' goals?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and the reason why I'm using the word partner is because a fundamental area of our current constitutional arrangement is that we have this quote unquote partnership with the United Kingdom.
Really.
So I think that those things have to come front and center, and we
Mm-hmm.
people should not afraid to discuss, to hash out, not to even think about uh, moving to any next stage or any additional step,
Mm-hmm.
and to, and to have the confidence to say what we want.
Mm-hmm.
If this is what we want, then we say it, this is what we want. If we are born of the Creator, like every other person on planet Earth, then it is all right to say this is what we want, and we should have the right to move towards it.
Yeah. Well, we know that we already have that outlined for us in the United Nations Declaration for Decolonization. Um, so my thoughts on it is that, as with everything else in nature, there's growth and development. Correct?
I agree.
There's no stagnation, because usually if something stagnates, eventually it starts to actually decay and regress. So I think again, the society is a living, breathing agency, so to speak. So and we are in our lives, we're always going from strength to strength. At least that would be what you would ideally or optimally be working forward to. You have challenges, you have obstacles, you have setbacks, and that's all part of the cycle of life. So I'm saying, when I read it and I started to reflect on it, I was like, you know what, for real, at the end of 15 years, with all the current conversation about constitutional review being necessary, it's like, what is the goal of a constitutional review? What is it we're trying to accomplish? And if it is that you want to be moving towards more independence from the administrative power, I don't know about this partnership because I haven't seen it. As the United Nations call it, is, somebody's in charge and we kind of going along with the program. That's how it's been. So again, taking it for what it is, this is the framework that is in. And if I'm 6 years old and I want to move out of my parents' house, but obviously I'm not mature enough to do it. I could try, but it's not going to be in my best interest in the long run. That we have to acknowledge where we are and decide, okay, these are the steps, as it was. So this sustainable development plan can be seen as, these are the steps we need to take to go through that process of maturity in governing ourselves, becoming economically independent. I mean, we haven't depended on England for a dollar in, I think it's over 40 years. As far as when we came off at right, it should be approaching 50 by now. But we basically been taking care of ourselves. But the other parts of the house, so to speak, again, looking at our infrastructure, looking at our education system, looking at health and wellness, measuring quality of life, as you said, right? And I think New Zealand is the one that measures their national progress like that, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
New Zealand.
Yeah, so I didn't make it up. You can Google it in terms of in New Zealand, one of the additional metrics. So they still look at things like the GDP, minimum wage, and all these things. But one of the key things is that they created some type of measuring framework to determine, how well are your people better off from
Yeah,
one time period to the next. And that is definitely something that we have to decide is an important metric for us to say this is how we're gonna know if we are better off, after time and money has been spent, and ensuring that that's done. So I know a lot of us are, we have planning fatigue. I know I have. I've been through a lot of planning exercises and seen a lot of things done over the last 20 years. And it's kind of, people are becoming a little apathetic to it and kind of like, oh well, they'll do a plan and say, give it to us and we just see what happens. But I think we really have to move away from that and be front and center in saying this is what I want my communities to look like. This is what I want my school system to look like, and give that meaningful feedback and solutions that you see, that need to be a part of a plan like this. And again, the plan will be looked at and measured probably in 5-year intervals, because usually you will have to do that, or after major events, if you have another pandemic, God forbid, or some other major natural disaster. You will look at where it does it set you back,
yes,
and if not,
yes.
move it forward. So that for me is what I would like to see in terms of the mindset. We talked about this at the beginning. This all is hinged on a mindset. There has to be a certain mindset in terms of what understanding the purpose and the value of having a national plan and having buy-in No, by the people to actually the implementation of it, because it's not something now that the government will just go and force on us, but that we as a community have to be bought into having healthier environments. So whatever our part is to play, like you're saying, stop throwing stuff out of your car window. And looking at ways of how to reuse, the things that we would normally just dispose without a thought. And putting those things in place gonna require us to start to think differently, to say, I want to see a better Virgin Islands in the next 15 years, and not just for myself, but for my grandchildren.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for the future generations.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to have a legacy mindset. I think that's what's gonna drive it. Because if I'm thinking about even something better than I met it, the innovation and the creative ideas are gonna come versus I'm trying to exhaust all the resources and I leave it for them to figure it out, you know, when it's their
You,
turn. But then they don't have anything to figure
you
out.
fill your cup while you're here.
Yeah.
No, but you're absolutely right, and there has been a mindset, and um, we probably wouldn't be able to discuss this, but there's there's a capitalistic mind that says you get all that you can get
Hmm.
now, and the, it's like the environment is just a tool for you to get all you can get, and so the steward of the environment, people,
Hmm.
you know, often are being robbed because one is converting all these different areas of the environment into capital wealth,
Hmm.
and there's nothing put back to replenish, or there's no
It's not sustainable.
design for replenishment. There's no of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the key part. All right. So, Art, I don't know. We're gonna probably come back with our others. For those that tuned in after the opening, we give apologies for Dr. Samuel and for Stacy. They had some engagements that came up, so they weren't able to join us tonight on the conversation about nation building. So, Art and myself held the fort, as it were. But this is something. If you guys know me and been following me for a while, this is one of my things on my heart in terms of nation building, not just in words and talk, but actually boots on the ground, things happening and things happening in a prioritized and purposeful way. Because we can always say money has been spent, things have been done, but whether or not, like we said, has it improved the quality of life of anybody and everybody is how we have to start to measure, progress, and not just in that kind of superficial way. So Art, I want to thank you for coming through tonight. Definitely we're gonna pick this back up and keep the conversation going. I'm not sure what other stakeholder consultations are going to be happening. I know today there was one with the business stakeholders that the Chamber of Commerce assisted with. So we had that Zoom call. So, but it's kind of close to when the plan was actually released. So again, persons can find it on our chamber website, bviccha.org, and I think it's on the plan. So, or you can search the government's website, bvi.gov.bg, and you can email your submissions to National Plan BVI at gov.bg. So I'm lobbying for a website with all the information on it. Because again, if this is a 15-year journey we're going on, this deserves its own webpage, Facebook, the whole nine. So again, people can be continually weighing in and having the conversations as we go, about this plan.
Well, in from that vein, I read Dr. Joan Soma. She came by and made a presentation to the African Studies Club, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of sustainable development and those type of um, things. And she talked about how they'll be going through to different organizations throughout the community also. And so just trying to give a little plug to the African Studies Club in terms of us engaging these issues and thinking about how things can be done
Mm-hmm.
a sustainable future.
Mm-hmm.
So we're wrapping up now.
Yeah. Give us a
So
closing word.
yeah, so thank you, Shayna, for having me and having the discussion. Obviously a critical for us to have at this juncture, this period of time that we're going through in the Virgin Islands and in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't take it lightly at all the importance of us thinking about our development. And I think at this perspective, we can't use development without using the word sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're talking about development, we're talking about sustainable development. So thank you for having me, Shayna, and I thought it was an excellent discussion.
Yeah, this definitely was just a start. So we will be back. So again, for those that if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please look it up, Vigilati Dialogues, as well as our Facebook page, Vigilati Dialogues. And as I always like to leave a word of encouragement for us, I found this interesting quote by the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, and he said, "Good governance needs self discipline. Only discipline within can ensure discipline without." And I think that's pretty straightforward because it ties right into what we're talking about in terms of it's the people that gonna be the ones that are basically crucial in terms of the implementation of the plan and actually realization of the goal. So, but it's going to require discipline because again, everything isn't a priority at the same time. So we have to make up in our minds as our grandparents would say, hang your hat where you can reach it, and walk towards, getting it up high on the rack. So until next time, I am your host, Shayna Smith Archer, saying let's continue the change in conversation for a better Virgin Islands.